Hey there, Duke fans. Episode 714 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Jason Evans, Donald Wine, here for your listening enjoyment. I'm calling this week, I've decided, Donald, I'm dubbing this week Fire Hose Week because we are feeding the feed. We're feeding our listeners with a fire hose. Content coming at you every single day as we lead up to the Final Four in San Antonio this weekend. Donald will be attending. I want to, Donald, really super fast before we introduce our guest who's hanging on the line patiently at the moment. I want to thank the folks who have emailed us to say, hey, guys, if you want a ticket to the Final Four, I've got one for you. Wow. I cannot believe that we have listeners who love us that much. It is really great.
Overwhelming, to say the least. Actually, the tickets that I acquired are through a friend of ours, Jason, that listens to the show, has been a big been a factor for us in the past, and I just can't believe it. My dad doesn't believe it that I have tickets. I keep telling him he can drive down for the game, but we will see if he makes it. Otherwise, someone might be coming with me.
Speaking of people who will be in the house, the person who is in the house anytime Duke basketball plays, we are joined now by a special guest today, David Shumate. He is, of course, the voice of the Blue Devils. David, I think this is your second or third appearance on the DBR podcast. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
No, for sure. Thanks for having me on.
I'm going to start with what is probably the most obvious question, which is that, like, what was it like on the plane? What was it like for you, celebrating with these guys after they got it done at the Elite Eight?
No, it's awesome. I mean, you get to see the journey up close, right? And when you do what I do and you get to go to practice and call the games and you get to know a lot of these guys as people. So that's kind of how you reflect. Where we call the games in the NCAA tournament is courtside, generally speaking, and kind of opposite the bench. So you're down there and you see the celebrations and, just to sit there and see a guy like Tyrese Proctor, who's been through the wars a little bit the last few years, and to see this full circle moment for him and John Shire, taking over for Mike Krzyzewski and everybody, all the questions everyone had about that and seeing him take Duke back to the Final Four. So to me, you're just kind of caught up in being happy for the people. Chris, I mean, I could go down the list and see all these different guys and the players and things like that. So that's the biggest thing. Yeah, it's a heck of a party for the guys once it's over with, and the plane ride is certainly fun. It's a late night. We didn't get back to Durham until early Sunday morning, but it's a good problem to have this time of year.
David, you mentioned the journey, and I think we've all really enjoyed this journey. Probably very few people who've enjoyed it more than you have. I just got to ask, do you have to remind yourself during games sometimes with some of these great plays that are going on that you get to see that you're working and your reactions kind of being broadcast to millions of people at the same time?
It's a boring answer. You guys might not like it, but you are kind of so locked into your work. That's what I'm focused on. Like, it sounds silly because there's 20,000 people in the arena on Saturday night, but I'm in breaks. I'm like, all right, who's got how many fouls? Who's got how many points? What storylines are we missing? What sort of stuff? So you are kind of lost in your work, and you have a sense of the moment. I do think the feel you have in the NCAA tournament, to me, is unlike anything else, because particularly as you get into the second half, the feel and the tension in the building, I don't know if that comes across well on television. It's something you can only experience in the desperation. The crowds are, I wouldn't describe them as raucous. It's more pensive, and it's like almost like relief anytime something good happens. And then when you feel the momentum and the emotion kind of releases when it's clear that Duke is going to win in advance, there's nothing quite like it. So you're aware of that. You're aware of the enormity of the moment, of the life-changing aspects of individual result. But in the flow of the game, look, I'm doing everything I can just to keep up with who's on the floor and who's got how many points, and you're kind of locked into the task at hand, as silly as that sounds.
You and John Roth, who does the color analysis, you guys have terrific chemistry. You know when to play off each other's calls in the game. And Jason and I have been doing this for 10 years. We know sometimes with the hand cues and things like that, how to, when to jump in. But even we jump into each other's words sometimes. We also don't have the distraction of what you just mentioned, being in the arena, everything that's going on around you, and also trying to lock in and focus on calling this game. Take us through what it's like for you to operate alongside him, and how do you control your surroundings when everything around you seems at times so chaotic?
Yeah, no, I mean, Roth, like you said, I mean, there are times we step on each other. That's just the nature of it when you're talking and stuff is happening. But a lot of that is a credit to John Roth. He's been at this for longer than I have, and he has a feel of when to get in there and when to say stuff. Now, I'm not naive in this modern era of social media and things like that, that a lot of times when people hear our calls, they're seeing video alongside of it. But we both have a respect for the fact that a large chunk of our audience in real time can't see what's going on. So the pure description of what is going on is the most important thing. So we try to make sure we're telling that. And part of telling the story is the basic details of time and score and all that sort of stuff, but also conveying the emotions and what's on guys' faces and things like that. And what Roth has, for those that don't know, he's got so much history at Duke. He was Coach K's first SID way back in the day. So if you want, like, he literally wrote a book called The Encyclopedia of Duke Basketball. So when I'm working with him, I'm always trying, particularly this time of year, to tap into his historical context for where this fits in, the journey that Duke is on. And, you think about the fact that we were talking about this past weekend, can they play the Final Four in New Jersey? Because the NCAA tournament has gone very well.
Nice record for us there.
Yeah, no, that sort of stuff is kind of cool to talk about with him and having context for the moment and the energy that comes with it. And, there are times that he lays out when it's a big moment for what I'm doing out there, but also all the different logistical stuff. Like, I'll give you a quick story behind the scenes. When we do win in advance and have a chance to go to the Final Four when Duke has, we can go on the floor and talk to the different players and the coaches and things like that. So in the last 2 minutes, it's a little bit of a fire drill because Roth has taken off his headset and getting suited up with wireless gear to get over on the baseline, to be able to get out there and get those kind of raw reactions, whether it be Tyrese or Cooper, who we got right after the game, or coach, or things like that. So there's definitely the logistical stuff you're working through behind the scenes. And as you said, the nonverbal communication is a piece of it as well. And sometimes I think in broadcasting, this is my personal opinion, of sometimes telling the story is shutting up and allowing the energy in the building just to come through for people to hear that and to be able to soak that in, even though it is radio. I mean, you want to tell some of the story, but you don't have to be talking constantly to get that across. So sometimes you try to play with the emotion of the crowd as well.
David, back in October, November, when you were really first getting a look at this team, did you get a glimpse of what they would become? Obviously we suffered. I was at the game where we lost to Kentucky. Duke had some early season struggles this year. Did you sense at that time, these guys are on a path where they're going to be one of the, and frankly, regardless of what happens this weekend, they're going to be one of the great teams in Duke history?
I think, you got that they had a shot. And I would argue I kind of saw that over the course of the summer. When you see some of the workouts, they can do some limited workout. And way back, Con Knippel was the talk of the summer, if you guys remember, about what he was doing those practices. And but some of it was before they even hit the floor. When I walked into the K Center to watch some of the practices, they're huge. And in person, it's striking. And it's like, okay, well, the body types are certainly there. And there's been plenty of Duke teams that have had those body types. But then you could see the competitiveness of the 5-on-5 work that they were doing in the summer, and you could see how they get after it. You could see kind of the early indications of the willingness to get on the floor and go after every loose basketball. You always want to wait to see what it looks like when the bullets are flying, so to speak, and how things are going early in the season. But you knew they had a chance. And then you think about, really, it's funny that they played Arizona in the NCAA tournament, because that game at Arizona was maybe one of the first inclinations I had with this team can do something special, to go there and hold that team to 55 points in that building where nobody wins out in Tucson, and to do it so handily, and to see Cooper and Con on that stage in that moment seem so at ease and so comfortable. That's where you knew, like, the ceiling for this team is awfully high. And obviously they've only gotten better since.
What surprised you the most from this team? I mean, we lost Malik. Big Pat has come on in just a huge way. Caleb Foster fell out of the rotation and now is the leading guy, the leading bench guard. Con Knippel stepping up with Coop gone down. I feel like there's so many different things. What to you has been the biggest surprise this season?
I don't know if I use the word surprise, but kind of in the same context. I got asked a couple weeks ago, an unsung hero. And I think you look at the last piece of the puzzle when this team came together, Sion James, that came over from Tulane. And I don't think anyone knew in the summer how important that he was going to be. And the role that he's taken, and now hearing the stories of when he first met with Coach Shire, when he visited here and simply asked him when he was deciding if he wanted to come, if I beat somebody out, will I have the opportunity to start? And obviously he's earned his way into the starting rotation, and he's been as important as anybody on this team. I don't think he gets talked about enough. He's consistently been in the top 25 or 30 in the country in terms of assist to turnover ratio. You guys have seen him up close. I'm sure Manny Diaz would love to see him in a linebacker room because he is a physical player. He doesn't get knocked off his spot very often, but he's also got this calm demeanor. We've talked about his charity work a bunch this season, and like the most easygoing, soft-spoken guy off the court. And then when he gets on the court, he takes a beating and he just goes inside and does his thing. And I do think that is a dimension to this team that's been really valuable, because the last few years, and even we've seen it at times this year, as teams are trying to figure out how to compete with Duke and do different things, being physical with Duke is kind of one of the things that people go to. Well, good luck being physical with the likes of a Sion James or Kaman Maluach or a Patrick Gungba or Mason Gillis. So to me, Sion James has been one of the guys that has really jumped off the page in a way maybe he didn't early in the season.
Look, I am the world's biggest Sion fan. I got to meet him while he was still at Tulane, and I was like, this guy, everyone who listens to our podcast knows, Donald, you can attest to this. I said, this guy's going to be a starter when everyone was saying he was going to be a role player. So you need not convince me of how great Sion James is. David, I wanted to ask you, how much do you get to talk to other play-by-play guys, people who do your kind of thing? And when you talk to them, what do they say about the fact that you get to call this remarkable Duke team?
No, I mean, we talk about our teams a little bit. Yeah, you talk generally to each other before every game, and a lot of it is like catching up on boring news and notes, like confirming pronunciations and things like that, or recent trends with the team, or something that might not be in the game notes that you can talk about that's a connection that might be interesting to them or may not be interesting, or things like that. So it's a quick catch up, and normally, to your point, the conversation ends with whoever we're playing looking at me going, you guys are really good. But no, yeah, people are taken aback. And a lot of times the conversations, because you say, goodbye or whatever when the game's over with and you're leaving, or things like that. And I do think it's one thing to see what Duke looks like on paper. It's another thing to see it in person and up close. And normally people are even taken aback. As good as Duke has been, I still think when people see it up close and see it in practice, it is jarring for them. I don't take it for granted, as I don't think you guys do either, because we've had a chance to see it a bunch. But with the length and the size and the willingness of all of that talent to get on the floor and get after it, it is something to behold. And I think it's that combination of everything in my mind that makes this Duke team unique in the program's history.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back with David Shumate, I want to ask you what your Saturday, this coming Saturday, the Saturday of the Final Four, what it's like, the prep, everything that'll go into that day. Do you sleep late? Do you get up early? I want to hear all about that after a quick commercial break.
All right, Duke fans, the finals for March Mania are here. And the only thing for sure is the last time to bet on college basketball this season. Get in on all the action, expected and unexpected, with DraftKings Sportsbook.
That's right, Donald, with live betting, exclusive content, promos, parlays. DraftKings is the ultimate college basketball destination for March. And if it's your first time using DraftKings, you can get something special. $5 in bets for $150 in bonus bets instantly. It is a great deal as we close out the season.
Bet the unexpected with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code DUKEBB. That's code DUKEBB for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over, age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio.
We're back from the break. Donald and Jason with David Shumate, the voice of the Blue Devils. I teased this before we went, David. Tell me about what your Saturday, you've been at the Final Four before. You've done this before. Tell me what Saturday at the Final Four is like for the guy who has to prep his voice to talk to Blue Devil Nation?
Well, I mean, in some respects, you try to make it as normal of a game day as possible, even though you know it's not a normal game day. And you go through it. Some of the schedule is really set out for you with the way the team orients their day. There's generally a shoot around involved, so you're going to get up and do some final stuff. Normally, by the time we get to game day, most of my preparation is complete. Like I'm normally done before I go to bed with all the news and notes and stuff that I want to have. The spotting boards that, for those that don't know, that I create, that have all the stats and stuff for each individual player and hometowns and pronunciations that we were talking about earlier and stuff like that. And any sort of broadcast notes, writing and open things like that. I've normally got all that done the night before, and maybe watching a little bit of tape just to make sure I'm confirming some stuff about sets that guys run or defensive schematics and things like that. So then when you get up, get a quick bite to eat, head to shoot around, come back and start getting cleaned up and get ready to head over to the Alamo Dome. The difference in the NCAA tournament is Roth and I will go over a lot earlier in the team. Some of the coaches will come over. They'll come over separately because we'll want to watch the Auburn and Florida game in the event that Duke wins, to have a chance to see them play before we get to the game on Monday night. So probably head over to the Alamo Dome. That game's going to tip at 5. I bet we leave the hotel at 4. So there's probably a shoot around earlier in the day. So it feels like you got all this time to wait, but it goes fairly quickly. And then you're over there and then you're in it. We go on the air about an hour before the game. And obviously we'll probably have Nina King on the broadcast this week, and our vice president, director of athletics. By then all the pregame interviews are done. When I get to the stadium, I talk to coach about an hour and a half before the game. That's when we do our pregame conversation. So I'll go in the back, get that taken care of with him. And then it's go time. I know for fans, it probably feels like it's a 48-hour day, but for me, it feels like it's a 3-hour day from the time I wake up to the time I get over there, because you're locked in and it's kind of laid out step by step. So maybe that's my advice to all Duke fans out there. Like, set yourself up a routine, schedule things, whether it be a lunch or workout or stuff, instead of sitting around all day stressing before the game.
I know the players and the coaches rather as well during Final Four weekends, NCAA tournament, ACC tournament. There's a little bit, a few extra obligations that they have to do with media and all that stuff. Does anything in that line kind of change for you? Do you have more opportunities to talk to the players, less opportunities to talk to players because of all the national obligations they may have? How does that change for you?
Yeah, we're fortunate in that we are allowed to, with the rules that the NCAA works as the radio broadcast, we're allowed into all the closed practices and stuff like that. So a lot of times that's when we can knock out our conversations with these guys. And by the time of the year, right, we've been around them all season long. So we're fortunate with our folks internally. We have incredible access to go do what we need to. Now, what I do with the players, our pregame conversations are 2 to 3 minutes, so they're minimal. But if I need to talk to Tyrese or Khan, I just grab them quickly and get that taken care of. I'll probably get it taken care of earlier in the week at practice or things like that, or have an opportunity to visit with coach for some ancillary programming we're doing. We'll do a show the night before down there for our radio audience with Justin Robinson. I think we're going to visit with the night before, so that'll be a nice opportunity to get some perspective from him before we get into the game. So it doesn't change too much. There are a lot of requests like we're doing today, where I'm visiting with you guys. Unfortunately, as I get later in the week, I just start to say no a lot, because it could take up all of your time. But it's cool. It's great. It's a great way to speak about the program and to talk to a bunch of different people that are interested in this team and what they're doing. So the days before the game, I'll probably do 8 to 10 hits with different people across the country, just talking about the team. So that's a little bit different than the normal build up to a game, and then being over at the arena and seeing all the availability for the guys and things like that. To your point, they have media obligations starting on Thursday. There's press conferences and breakout sessions. They'll do them both Thursday and Friday. The nice thing is on Saturday, they kind of lock it down to where the guys don't have to do as much of that and can get ready to play the game. But it's cool. It's cool to see these guys that have spent their whole lives watching the NCAA tournament, and now they get a chance to go and be a part of the Final Four. So I think the staff and the team and everybody does a nice job of balancing the things you're obligated to do with doing some cool stuff and some chances to enjoy the moment, even though obviously they're going to be locked in on the game on Saturday.
We were joking before we started recording, but we really appreciate you taking the time out of what is, again, a busy week for you to come on with us. So I'm glad we got you early in the week before things got a little too dicey for you. You mentioned the Friday show that you're going to do with Justin Robinson. Do you have any details on that? We can obviously, have that so people who are going to San Antonio can meet up for you.
Well, it's not going to be open to the public, unfortunately. It's a
Okay.
closed event, but people can check it out on the local radio affiliates. It'll be available on the Varsity Network, and we're going to stream it on Facebook Live for people that want to hear perspective from Coach. Just space limitations and things like that. We won't be able to open it up to the public.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. There's one thing I've wanted to ask since we jumped on. Your call of Cooper's poster dunk on Guillermo Diaz-Graham is one that will live forever. And for those of you who have lived under a rock all season, this is what I'm talking about.
Guillermo Diaz-Graham with it up top to the right, low now. Bounces one inside, Cooper stole it, cutting in front, a chance to run all the way to the other end! A dunk of a lifetime! And he's fouled! My goodness! Cameron in a frenzy!
Guillermo Diaz-Graham thought he was going to challenge that shot. Oh no, he just got posterized.
My goodness! Put that on every highlight reel.
Okay, now, is that your favorite from this season? And if not, what beats it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think about my calls, and people will disagree with me on this, but I'm just telling you it's true. I didn't know I was going to say that. Like, I don't plan this stuff, and sometimes that works to your benefit, and sometimes it works against you when something silly falls out of your mouth. But that's what it felt like in the moment. I mean, where we call the games, we're kind of up in the roof in the crow's nest, and it's a great angle to watch the game, and it's true perspective of where he took off. When he took off, I had no idea how he was going to get to the basket, let alone get through Guillermo Diaz-Graham and to finish that. It's one of the craziest things I've ever seen. And, dunk of a lifetime to me. Like, it was just an incredible moment in that building. It's not something that can be replicated. It's right up there. Think about Cassius Stanley. He had a crazy one. I think it was against NC State. And then also, Zion Williamson. I could probably stack up 3 or 4. Final Four, you start to think about Grant Hill. I mean, there's a million different ones we can go with, but I don't know. In the moment, that's what it felt like. It felt like something you're not going to see, but maybe once in a lifetime in person.
I know for me, it's easy for me because I was watching at home. So when it happened, I'm able to jump up and down and run around. You cannot in the crow's nest. So we appreciate that call because it was I was actually listening to your broadcast timed up with the game. So it felt like I was there.
Hey, David, you have seen a lot of Duke players, a lot of Duke teams over the years. Where does Cooper Flagg rank for you, and where does this team rank for you among, all the ones you've observed?
Yeah, the ranking thing is hard because to me, each team is unique. I will say I haven't seen a player that affects things on both ends of the floor the way Cooper Flagg does. And there have been plenty of guys who can dominate a basketball game. Paulo Banchero could certainly dominate a basketball game. Zion Williamson can dominate a basketball game. And I'm just talking about the limited time, like you said, that I've been here in the 8 years. But John Shire coined this phrase, and I've been using it a lot this year. Cooper controls the game. And if you're in the building, you feel it, how teams have to build everything they're doing offensive and defensively and trying to figure out how to account for him and the problems that he can present. And really, teams have struggled to do that. And there just aren't really many good answers when he decides to do his thing. And some of that is because of what John Shire has put around him, because the obvious answer is like, okay, double him. Well, he's so big, he'll just throw over the top of the double team, and now he's going to have 10 assists on you. Okay, go one-on-one. I'm still waiting for the one-on-one defender that can shut down Cooper Flagg. So, I mean, and then what he does defensively and the space that he takes up inside and the way he can come on the perimeter and funnel people into Malawach, the shot blocker. So there's really just not a lot of good ways to approach things. So to me, he is unique in that respect. He controls the game better than anybody that I've seen in my time here. And then this team overall is as deep of a team as I can remember in recent memory from a Duke perspective, to be able to absorb things like the injuries they did in the ACC tournament or the foul trouble at different times. A lot of times those sorts of things can be fatal in a postseason run if you get the wrong guy in the wrong position and foul trouble. I mean, heck, they dealt with it against Arizona. It wasn't really talked about in that first half. I think Malik was supposed to be in case of emergency in the first half with both Gungba and Malawach dealing with foul trouble. But to be able to navigate that, and you forget about it because then they're up 19 in the second half and they hold on and win by 7. So the depth and the willingness of all these guys to dive on the floor and get after it. I mean, Knipple, I've had a chance to talk with him about his love for football growing up and his willingness to get on the floor, and he had to give that up to focus in on basketball. But one of his favorite quotes all time was like, it makes him sick when he sees a ball on the floor going out of bounds and no one dives for it. I mean, that's a different kind of mentality. So this team, their depth and their willingness to sacrifice their body, do whatever to win, puts them in a unique category to me.
You know, we hear so much about this team being tight, being close, checking their egos at the door, all that other kind of stuff. Is that something you've observed as well?
Yeah, no question. I think obviously you see it on the basketball court, you see it at practice and things like that, but you referenced that Arizona game earlier in the year. We were out there for a few days before the team headed over to Las Vegas to take on Kansas, and you kind of had a resort that's a little bit outside of Tucson, and there wasn't a whole lot to do, but constantly I'd see the guys kind of traveling the halls in packs and kind of spending time around each other, whether that's just a quick trip to Starbucks or just kind of hanging out in the lobby or things like that. And to me, that's kind of cool to see these guys that have so much pressure, so much attention, whether it be Cooper, whether it be Kamon, whether that be Tyrese, and to see them just be guys and just be kids, so to speak. I know they're not kids, they're grown men, but just having fun and hanging out with each other. And they're doing video game tournaments at different stages of the ACC or an NCAA tournament. They truly like just hanging around. And that part of it, to me, is cool to see them go about and live their day-to-day lives beyond just being basketball players and everything that comes with it. And they're just good kids. And I know everybody says that, but I mean, you look at their GPAs from the fall, they're incredible. The guys had 4.0s, including Cooper. So it's just a unique group. And there have been other groups like that in the past, but this group is certainly special, and they have a chance to cap it off here in less than a week.
Okay, speaking of capping it off, I'm going to ask you for your prediction. I don't just want I think Duke's going to win. Give me a little bit of, I think so-and-so is going to have big, what do you really, in your dreams, I guess, see happening over the weekend?
Well, you're in luck because I don't make predictions. I've learned not to do that. But yeah, when Houston to me is an interesting challenge because last year they were so good and a lot of that was shed. And unfortunately, he got hurt during the game that the Blue Devils won to get to the Elite Eight. Just you don't want to see anybody get hurt at any point in the NCAA tournament. But a lot of those guys are back and they're big and physical. And Kelvin Sampson is one of the best coaches in the country and certainly an elite defensive coach. So stylistically, to me, it's going to look very different than what we saw through the first 2 weeks of the tournament when Duke was going up against these juggernaut offenses, so to speak, and maybe some teams that aren't as good defensively. And now you're looking at Houston that can certainly score, but they bring with them the most efficient defense in the country, which is so funny because I remember for the first third of the season, if not the first half of the season, John Schauer was being asked ad nauseum what's wrong with the offense because the defensive efficiency numbers were so good. People have forgotten that as Duke rides into this game as the most efficient offense in the country, taking on this Houston team. To me, that's interesting. Duke obviously still top 5 in terms of their defensive efficiency numbers. So to me, that battle of wills of who's going to be able to probably make some individual plays. I think running set offense in this game for both teams is going to be awfully difficult. Cooper Flagg, that sounds like something he could be very important in, but there's obviously the unknown, like Isaiah Evans. I don't think anyone going into the Auburn game thought that he was going to be the key guy to spark everything. So you look at a guy like that, and then I look at the body types of a Sion James or Con Knipple and how physical they can be and how comfortable they can be playing with physicality. I'd put Patrick Gungman in that category as well alongside Malawach. I think you're going to need that against a Houston team that is old and physical and looks a lot like they did a year ago. So I'm expecting a rumble, so to speak, in the second game on Saturday night. I'm not expecting a game that gets into the 80s, but who knows? Because I thought we might see a defensive struggle against Arizona, and it was 193. So don't take my word for it, but it does feel like this is going to be a real defensive struggle, and it come down to who can maybe make some individual plays.
All right, folks, you heard it here first from David Shumate, the voice of the Blue Devils. David, thanks so much for joining us and for reaching out to the fans and letting us hear a little bit of what you have to say on something other than game day. We appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Donald, just a great interview. A lot of fun there talking to David Shumate. We got a couple other little things I know you and I wanted to mention very quickly. First of all, the Duke women, this is old news, but we haven't had a chance really to address it. The Duke women lost to South Carolina, a very close, competitive, exciting game against a leading national title contender. It's really unfortunate. I watched that game and, God, you kept on – the defense was there for Duke. There's no question about that. but you kept on having these possessions where you're like, oh, just make a play here, and then they couldn't quite get there. But the progression that Kara Lawson and the Blue Devils have had in women's basketball the past few years, making it to another round each year, feels like the Final Four is up next year, doesn't it?
Yeah, and look, that game honestly came down to one shot, right? Ashlyn Jackson, if she hits that shot, they're going to Tampa. And yeah, it's sad. It was gutting for them to come that close. And again, they're losing to the defending national champion team that has been in 5 Final Fours in a row. Last year, they lose in a close one to UConn. So they are seeing what the bar is, and they're seeing what they have to get past, and they're right there. The fact that they had a loaded up schedule this year and they, challenged everybody and beat almost everybody that they challenged is incredible. They had a chance, and they played South Carolina earlier this year and lost by close to 20. And it is a game that kind of was close until South Carolina ran away after we kind of ran out of gas. This one, we were able to hang on with them until the last 5 seconds of the game. And so I think this bodes well for the program. I know they may be gutted, but it was such a great season to watch them play. The transfer portal has kind of heated up a little bit lately, Jason, on the women's side, with Olivia Miles deciding to not go to the WNBA and also enter the portal. Maybe we get a call from Kara Lawson there, but this team is going to be fun to watch. And speaking of, I know tonight the McDonald's All-American game is going on, and I think Emily Skinner is playing in that game. Is that correct? On the women's side?
Oh gosh, I haven't looked at it that much.
Yeah, I know she's playing in the Jordan. I know she's playing in the Jordan Brand elite game here in DC. So I'm hoping to get out there in a couple weeks to see. But again, one of the top recruits in the country, one of the top players in women's basketball, is coming to Durham next year. I know Kara Lawson is going to have another team that's really loaded and ready to go and ready to take on and other challengers and get to that next level, which for us would be the Final Four. Again, we're missing out so close, but hats off to them on a great season. Really, really enjoyed watching them, and I'm sad that we don't have extra basketball this weekend to watch.
Yeah, by the way, you mentioned the McDonald's All-American game is happening this evening, Tuesday night. Again, you and I are so busy getting so many things done. It may be a few days before we get a full reaction to the men's game and the women's game there. The Boozer twins playing in that game. So is Nick Kamenia for Duke, and Nate Ament, who is still a possibility for Duke, one of the top recruit who is not yet committed. So we'll have reaction to all that stuff, folks, but we're going to put that on the back burner until after the Final Four. There's just a lot more pressing issues than recruiting for next year. I did want to mention very quickly in terms of the current team that Cooper Flagg was named the winner of the NABC, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. He won the NABC Player of the Year award. There are, I think we've talked about, there are six major awards. Cooper has now won 2 of them. Janai Broom won the Sporting News Player of the Year, and we're still waiting to get probably I think most of you folks would agree that the 3 biggest ones are the AP Player of the Year, the Naismith Trophy, and the John Wooden Award. And those are the 3 we're waiting on. We'll get them over the next several days, and then we'll have a good sense as to who was the consensus Player of the Year. Kind of look, right now it's 2-1, kind of looking like it's probably Cooper, I think, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, again, another accolade for him. I know he will sit there and say this is cool and all, but there's one accolade that he's looking for. I know there's one accolade that all of us are looking for, and that is a 6th championship banner. And so this is just another one that he can add to his trophy case. But really, really, again, it just another outlet telling us what we already knew, that he was the best player in college basketball, and we were really lucky to have him on our team.
Yeah, no question about it. All right, with that, we're out of here. Like we've said, we're going to have more content coming your way. We will be speaking to someone who covers the Houston. Oh, God, wait, I just blanked on.
Cougars.
What are they?
They're the Cougars.
I could not spit that out. We'll be speaking to someone who covers the Houston Cougars, a deep dive over the next couple of days coming your way as we really tell you about the team that Duke is about to play in the Final Four. That and much more here on the DBR podcast feed. He's Donald. I'm Jason. Thanks for joining us. Here's the Duke Band playing us out. and they are still taking us to San Antonio.